I never expected my life to take the strange turn that it did. It all started on a completely normal day, a day like any other. I had called for an Uber to get to a work meeting, and I wasn't thinking about much. Just my to-do list, the usual stress. I remember scrolling through my phone, not really paying attention when my ride pulled up. I glanced up, saw the driver, gave a polite smile, and got in. His name was Jason. He looked like a regular guy, mid-30s, clean-shaven, with this friendly vibe. He greeted me with a warm smile and asked how my day was going. We exchanged small talk, nothing too personal. You know, the usual stuff, how busy the city was, the traffic, the weather. I didn't think much of it, honestly. He seemed nice, but then, most Uber drivers make polite conversation. I was too focused on the meeting ahead, not thinking about him at all. The drive went smoothly, and when we reached my destination, he wished me well and said, "Hope to see you again." I gave him a quick thanks and got out, heading into my meeting without a second thought. Little did I know that this was only the beginning of something I couldn't have imagined. A few days later, I needed another Uber to get to a friend's birthday party. I called for a ride, and when I checked the app, I saw that Jason was my driver again. I thought, what are the chances? And didn't give it much more thought. But when I got into the car this time, things felt different. Jason seemed more talkative, more attentive to me. He asked about my day again, but this time he made comments about how busy professionals like me must be juggling so much, and how it must be nice to get some downtime. I noticed he kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror. His eyes lingered just a little too long, and it made me feel uneasy, but I pushed the feeling aside. Maybe I was just reading too much into it. He dropped me off, and again, he said, "Hope to see you soon." This time, though, he added, "Take care of yourself." Something about the way he said it felt more personal, like we had some kind of connection. I shrugged it off, thinking he was just being friendly. But after that second ride, Jason started popping up more frequently. It was almost like every time I called for an Uber, it was him. At first, I thought it was just coincidence. But then it became too consistent to ignore. I'd get into his car, and he'd start asking more personal questions. How was my day? Was I seeing anyone? What did I like to do for fun? I tried to keep it light, but there was this tension in the air. His comments started getting more forward. He complimented my hair, my dress, even how I smelled. I started to feel uncomfortable, but at the same time, I don't know, part of me enjoyed the attention. It's hard to explain. I wasn't looking for anything, but there was something flattering about the way he seemed so into me. One day, things took a turn. I was heading home from a long day, and Jason was my driver again. This time, he seemed different, more intense. We didn't even get through the usual small talk before he just blurted out, "I've been thinking about you a lot." I froze for a second, unsure of how to respond. I kind of laughed it off, hoping to ease the awkwardness. "That's nice of you," I said, but it didn't stop there. He continued, saying he couldn't get me out of his head, that every time he saw my name pop up in the app, his heart raced. He said he had feelings for me, real feelings, and that he thought maybe fate was bringing us together. He asked me if I felt it too, the connection. I was caught off guard. I didn't know what to say. Here was this guy, my Uber driver, confessing his feelings to me out of nowhere. Part of me was flattered, but another part of me was freaked out. I didn't want to hurt his feelings, but I also didn't want to lead him on. I told him I appreciated his honesty, but that I wasn't looking for anything like that. I said I valued his professionalism and hoped we could just keep things friendly. He didn't take it well. His face dropped, and the rest of the ride was filled with this uncomfortable silence. I could feel the tension in the air. When we got to my place, he didn't say a word, just stopped the car and stared straight ahead. I mumbled a quick thanks and got out, feeling a wave of relief as soon as the door closed behind me. But that wasn't the end of it. A week later, I called for another Uber, and sure enough, Jason showed up again. This time, he didn't say anything for most of the ride. The silence was thick, almost suffocating. But then, as we neared my destination, he spoke. He said he couldn't stop thinking about me, that he'd lost sleep over it. And then he asked me to give him a chance. I didn't know what to do. I felt trapped, like I was stuck in this situation I couldn't control. I told him again, as gently as I could, that I wasn't interested, that I appreciated his kindness, but it wasn't going to happen. That's when things got weird. He started showing up outside my building. At first, I thought it was just coincidence, but then it became too frequent. He'd be parked outside in his Uber, waiting. He'd text me, saying he was nearby, asking if I needed a ride. I started to feel like I was being watched, like I couldn't escape him. I had to block his number. I stopped using Uber altogether for a while, just to avoid him. But the real shock came when I got a call from Uber's customer service. They told me Jason had been terminated. Apparently, someone had reported him for inappropriate behavior with a customer, and after an investigation, they decided to let him go. I felt this wave of guilt. Had I been the cause? Had my attempts to be kind and not hurt his feelings led to him losing his job? But then I reminded myself, this wasn't my fault. He had crossed a line, several lines, and it wasn't my responsibility to protect him from the consequences of his actions. A few weeks later, I heard through a friend who also used Uber a lot that Jason had been let go because he was getting too personal with multiple customers, not just me. Apparently, he had a pattern of becoming infatuated with women he drove, and I wasn't the only one who felt uncomfortable. On one occasion, as we were driving one evening, the atmosphere in the car felt different. Jason had been quieter than usual, but as we neared my destination, he glanced at me and said, almost nervously, "You know, you can touch my thigh if you want." I was taken aback, unsure of how to respond. My heart raced, and I tried to laugh it off, pretending I didn't hear him. But then, at a red light, he turned to me and leaned in closer. I could see it in his eyes. He was going to try something. Before I could react, he moved in, attempting to kiss me. I pulled back quickly, my heart pounding, and nervously told him to focus on driving. I thought it was over, but as we got closer to my place, he tried again, leaning in when the car stopped. This time, I firmly said no, and the tension hung thick in the air for the rest of the ride. It was a strange, surreal experience. Looking back, I can't believe how quickly things spiraled out of control. What started as harmless rides in an Uber turned into something much more complicated, something that affected both of our lives in ways I never expected. The whole situation left me wary, more cautious about who I let into my life, even in seemingly casual ways. It made me realize how quickly boundaries can be crossed if you're not careful. And while part of me still feels bad that Jason lost his job, I know that ultimately, it was his choices that led him there. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share for more Lust Diary stories.